Hi, I'm Brian with Pioneer Builders. Welcome to another episode of The Build Show. This video is brought to you by Quilt. I'm going to get into all of the details when it comes to actually sizing your mechanical equipment, and we're at Mechanical Rough, and I'm going to show you what we did in order to prepare us for success when it comes time to trim. Let's get into it. So here's the actual equipment that we're going to talk about later, but let's talk for a little bit about how we got to this point. So we're obviously at framing rough-in, but before you even get to the framing rough-in, you should really be planning for your mechanical systems. Your mechanical systems are really dependent upon how efficient your building envelope is in terms of keeping the outside out and the inside in. To accomplish that, you want your architectural design to have good details, to be able to show what all of your assemblies are. You need to know what your window capabilities are in terms of U values, possibly solar heat gain coefficient. All of those parts and pieces can then go to a mechanical design firm who can then create manuals J, S, and D. So in this particular house, what are some of the details that helps us to know what the loading conditions are here? Well, if you've watched the other videos, we have an unvented crawl space. Up on this main level, we've got zip system sheathing that has the R6 on the outside. We're going to have R23 insulation in the walls. You want to know things like, what are your stud spacings? In this case, it's 24 inches on center. The further your stud spacings are, the more insulation you can get, the higher your thermal efficiency, and therefore you are able to have smaller mechanical equipment. Up in the roof system, we actually have rock wool comfort board on the outside. We've got an over-vented roof assembly, an extremely high efficient building envelope. What that does is it allows the mechanical designer to come up with the manual J. The manual J is really your load calculation. So in a nutshell, it's how much heat do you need to produce inside the house in order to counteract how much heat would be flowing through all of those different parts of your building to keep the inside at a good, comfortable temperature. But bottom line, we need to be more concerned here in the Pacific Northwest of producing heat on the inside than actually keeping the house cooler in the summer. So in this case, the manual J would result in having a pretty low requirement in terms of how much heat we have to add to the house in order to keep it comfortable. So that's the manual J. Now the manual S is, once you've determined what your load calculations are, now you just match it up to the type of equipment that you're going to use to be able to meet that. In our case, on the main level now, we're going to be using the Quilt system. It's a 24 kBTU, or 24,000 British thermal units per hour is what that has in terms of capacity. And it's going to be twinned. This is a 12 kBTU indoor unit, and we're going to have 2 of those on the main level. These are variable refrigerant flow. They're inverter driven, and what that means is it can match its capacity to what the loading condition is. In other words, it's not just going to be producing 24,000 BTUs all the time. It will actually modulate depending on what the needs of the building are. So say you're in more of the shoulder seasons, like maybe March through June-ish, you're going to barely require any heat to keep this at an indoor temperature of, say, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. So this will actually modulate how much output it produces in order to meet that set point. It is a much more intelligent, rational way to heat and cool your building. So we've gone over the manual J, the manual S, your equipment sizing, and I'll make one other comment to you. Go ahead and collaborate with your mechanical designer. So I let our mechanical designer know that this is the type of equipment that I wanted. So in a sense, I already did that work for him. In this case, the Quilt system has a SEER 2 of 25 and an HSPF 2 of 12. Bottom line, that's extremely energy efficient, but it's nice to get the energy rater looped in just to make sure you're going to be able to hit your metrics if you're going for tax credits or something like that. So it just keeps everybody in the loop up front so that when you finish the project, you didn't make a mistake up front in the design aspect. So what about the manual D side of things? Well, that has to do with your actual ductwork. Do I really need to work on ductwork when it comes to a ductless system? The short answer is no. So you don't need to worry about that. These are ductless systems, so you don't need to worry about your manual D. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you some of these components, but in a future video, we're going to go through the installation of it and what it looks like with its fit and finish. And I'm going to get much more into the details on the electrical side of things. But right now we're just going to talk about the rough-in and the equipment itself. Something you might notice right up front is the size of this. I believe in the specifications it comes in at 7 7/8, which is going to be not near as tall as what you're used to seeing with your mini split systems. What the folks at Quilt have done is try to take that objection that mini splits are ugly and flip that. They've tried to make the form much more appealing. The reason that they're able to accomplish that is because the mini splits that I'm used to installing have their condensation line, which is this here, and their refrigerant lines encompassed within part of the unit here. In this case, the point of connection happens inside the wall, so they're able to make this what looks like a smaller piece of equipment, but it still has a massive capacity. In fact, a 9 unit from another manufacturer would be smaller, but when you start getting up into 12, they're monsters. The fact that this is a 12, for those of you who are in the industry, is pretty surprising. And that's in a really good way that they're able to achieve this. So it's kind of nice to be able to see it before it's installed. Up here, we have some of our filters. On the front is where the cover is going to go. Now this is another key difference, is a lot of times the covers have kind of a hatch situation. We're going to get into the difference in just a second. Something when it comes time to installation is your typical plate, which you're used to seeing. This we'll get into in the future, but that'll be installed. They have a puck, and then something else that really changes the aesthetic is the covers. They sent me 2 different ones. I'll show you how easy it is to install. You can see that there's a difference in dimension here and here, but it's magnetically affixed. If you're used to seeing other mini splits, usually there's a hatch situation. This would actually make servicing it a lot easier than doing the hatch. You just pull that right off. Now the other one that they sent has an oak finish to it. And the cool thing is, on this property, we're going to have oak hardwood flooring. So that's going to be able to tie in nicely to the finished floor. But the other thing that you can do, and you might have seen this, if you follow Quilt on Instagram, you'll see some really beautiful things people have done, even incorporating wallpaper into this. So this almost becomes invisible as far as the wall is concerned. So I think that that is a super cool feature. But let's get down to what it took when it came time to actually do the installation. Now, the way these are designed is typically to be installed on an exterior wall, but there were factors that didn't allow us to do that on this house. We had slopes to contend with. Bottom line, we actually wanted to bring these on the inside. So what I did is I worked with the mechanical contractor. We came up with the locations that made sense to us, what we felt the good solution would be, and then I actually called Quilt's technical support to make sure that they would be okay with it. I am not the type of builder to sin now, repent later. I would much rather work with a manufacturer, and I will tell you, it was nice to not just get an AI chatbot. I talked to a person, and very quickly it became apparent that he knew what he was talking about and he had experience. So he talked to us about one option that we could use in terms of installing this on an inside wall, but we explained to him what we wanted to do, and he was completely fine with it. So now I'm going to show you what we did for the mechanical rough-in on this house. Now we're going to get down to brass tacks. Here's your refrigerant line and condensate line. We're going to end up locating this higher on the wall, up there. If you notice, in this house, so we're high seismic design category D2. We've got lots of shear walls. Pay attention to your stud spacing. Pay attention to what your furniture is going to be in the room, just in terms of, I wanted it to be here. We're going to have probably light switches right here. So I figured it would just be kind of a clean aesthetic coming down from the ceiling. The reason we have this marked out is just so that doesn't get covered up by the drywallers later. These components will end up feeding through the wall. Okay, so here's one unit. Now as we come into the primary bedroom, you'll see a similar situation, but you can see what was concealed by that wood structural panel back there. So here we have the same little piece of PVC, and again, that's just to mark where it's going to be located. This unit is going to sit about right here. So this wall is what made the most sense for that. Now you can see what we have to add on the inside. So here's your condensation drain. The reason you do a condensation drain is when you're in air conditioning mode, if the humidity is high enough and everything gets cold enough, the water will condense and it will actually dehumidify. So this is going to be able to run with gravity all the way out of the building. Now, one thing to note, if you're coming down from more than one level, make sure that you check the manufacturer's installation instructions if there's anything unique when it comes to the condensation line. Now here we have our two refrigerant lines that are going to have the point of connection up at the indoor unit and then also from the outdoor unit. So you can see those through there, they go through the bottom plate. Now, as we come in here, you can see back to back the same situation over here. Here we have our condensation line, we have our refrigerant lines, they're just stubbed up there and then they go through the bottom. Here's something that I really like about this setup. Typically what we do at this stage, if we used a different manufacturers, we have our refrigerant lines coming up and out of the wall. The copper tubing inside, I can't tell you how many times that gets moved around because an insulation installer or a drywaller doesn't know what they're doing and they just take those and they kink them. Not cool. I think this is pretty nice that we're able to keep this concealed inside the wall, but there is something that you need to consider, and this was what we did and that we got the approval of. This makes perfect sense in a commercial situation, or if you're a mechanical contractor, this is normal to you. But where you have points of connection, you want to have access. So part of my design thinking is, right now I'm in a primary closet. We're going to build just a very simple access panel on this side of the closet so that if there's ever any serviceability issues, at some point, if a piece of equipment needs to be replaced, we're able to do that. So this is inside a closet. You'll see how we trim that out later in the future to make it unobtrusive and make it accessible. Now, I'm going to walk through this wall here, but you can see the backside. We did exactly the same thing. We're going to build a little panel. This is a water closet. It is a perfect spot to be able to have that accessibility. So that's thinking long term. This is a spec home, but sometimes we don't sell our houses, we hold them in our rental portfolio. So I want to think in terms of longevity, not just the initial rough-in, the initial installation, but also on into the future to make sure that the house is as serviceable as it can be. Now let's go down in the crawl space and just follow these out. This is why I like unvented crawl spaces. So as we look up here, I know this is the one that was by the water closet because we have the water supply. So here's the condensation line coming through that bottom plate in the subfloor. Here's our refrigerant lines. They're able to do all of this with gravity, so that's nice. You don't have to worry about a condensate pump. Check this out. there won't be any insulation coming in these stud bays. Back here then, we have the same idea. You can see the slope running out for the condensation line. Then they have their refrigerant lines, and these converge over here, and this is where that beautiful heat pump is going to go. So that's it as far as the mechanical contractor is concerned. Now, if you're the general contractor, you want to make sure that you're thinking of all of the trades that might be interfacing together. So from the outside, you might think about the cladding installer, but don't forget that you have to think about things in terms of wiring. You'll either need a 20 or a 25 amp breaker. You can look at the instructions, talk to your electrician, see what the run is as far as the line voltage from your heat pump to your main panel, but make sure that you are also thinking in terms of the electrician. He should be starting hopefully next week, and once that's done, we're going to get through the rest of the project. Then we'll come back and we'll get this all commissioned, and we'll work with the mechanical contractor and the electrician once again, and then we're going to have a super efficient home. Thank you so much for watching. We covered a ton of stuff, from what your load calculations are, to the sizing of your equipment, selecting your equipment, actually doing the installation into the field. All of that comes together, and I think that you as the general contractor, or if you're a homeowner, need to be thinking through all of those things in the interfacing. Very cool system. Stay tuned for next time when it's all commissioned and operational. Give me a follow over on social media at Pioneer Builders Inc. A lot of other contributors here on the Build Show Network. Now go build something.